Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan LoPresti, and today I have Ciara Foy with me. Ciara is a celebrated expert in women's weight loss and hormone health. She empowers high-achieving women with strategies for self-care and sustained energy to chase their dreams. She's the author of Empowered by Food. She provides insights into hormone health and stress management. Through the Empowered Feminine podcast, shares her journey overcoming weight issues, burnout, and hormonal challenges, inspiring women to embrace their wellness journey with confidence. Her expertise particularly shines in supporting women through perimenopause and menopause transitions, offering practical strategies for managing symptoms while maintaining career momentum, which is a very challenging thing to do, by the way, because I went through it. Featured in top publications like Elle and Flair, Ciara expertise helps women worldwide achieve balance and success. I am so excited to have Ciara here with me. So just sit back and relax and let's take it away. Ciara, thank you so much for being here today. The first thing I want to ask you, when did your entrepreneurial journey begin and what took you down this path that you're on right now?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I'll take you back all the way to 2000. And at that time, I was a transactional law clerk on Bay Street in Toronto. So that's like Wall Street in Canada, right?
Okay.
And I was the woman at that time having smoothies in the lunchroom. And people were like, what the heck are you doing? So I always had a love for nutrition. I would go to the gym in the morning at 6 a.m. I established that habit by literally locking my makeup and everything in my gym locker so that I had to go to the gym in order to get to work.
Wow.
And basically what ended up happening was I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I worked in this, very high performance environment. And I ended up getting to a relationship with a man who already was a lawyer. And he was like, hey, why don't you stay home and have kids instead? Like, we don't both need to be lawyers, right? And I was already working a lot. So fast forward, I thought that was a great idea. And the reality of being a stay-at-home mom, and I was quite young, about 27 when my daughter was born, was that I felt like there was something in me, my purpose, that wasn't being attended to. So by the time she was a year old, was going back to school for nutrition, really from a perspective of like a passion project and being like, I really want to keep my brain sharp and learn and have something to give to the world, but not as my full-time job. And by the time I was finishing that, my marriage was crumbling. And so I found myself in a position where, this was going to be my full-time gig. And so that is when I had to make some really tough decisions to keep myself in a lifestyle that I had become accustomed to. I bought 2 franchises. So I went 100% all in on my entrepreneurial journey. I, remortgaged my house. And that is where it really started, which was 2007. And my clinics opened 2008 and 2009. And that is when everything really just went full speed ahead.
Were the franchises related to health and wellness?
Yes. Yeah. So the franchises were a brand called You Weight Loss. The founders of that, one of them you might be familiar with, was originally Herbal Magic. So he was the founder of Herbal Magic. So they had come together and put together a whole food based plan with a naturopath from Toronto that I very much aligned with. And so I opened these two full service weight loss clinics. Yeah.
And that was the start of that. And then it just took off from there. So mostly your clients are professional women, right? That are
Yes.
facing perimenopause and menopause. And so how do you help them navigate through all of that? Because I know it was a challenge for me when I was going through it. So I'd love to hear how you help out with that.
Yeah, for sure. So, because my background was corporate and because I worked on Bay Street, which is, all high performers, I really had a good idea of, and I had watched and been friends with these women who burn the candle at both ends, put all of their time and energy into their work, and really were just, even at a young age, burning themselves out. So that's why I really focused on those women. After I sold my weight loss clinics and went into private practice, those are the women I want to help because I want to see women break through barriers. I want to see women well resourced and successful. I want to see women, whether it's corporate breaking through the glass ceiling or whether it's more women entrepreneurs who are, financially independent. But we can't do that if we are self-sacrificing. And that is what I saw was the plight of the high achiever, was that these were women who got, so much validation from what they did that they were addicted to work, but they were never taking care of themselves. And the relationship with themselves suffered as well as their health. And their ability to stay at that high performing level was just going downhill. Now, when you add perimenopause on
Mm.
top of that and menopause, it is a entirely different ballgame because what happens is I really believe it's a gift. And, from whatever you believe in, God, the universe is like, for women, this is the time when you can no longer get by just scraping by. You cannot continue to self sacrifice, put everybody and everything ahead of yourself. And instead, it is a time when you have to lean into taking care of yourself. Because if you don't, the road is extremely rocky, right? We can only, get through perimenopause and menopause and beyond by really leaning in to the relationship we have with our body, to partnering with her and to supporting her so that in turn we have the energy, we have the mental clarity, we have the passion and motivation to continue moving forward in our lives.
Right. But I know women, especially like high-powered women,
Mhm.
they have a hard time focusing on themselves because they're
Yes.
so busy, especially if they have a family besides a high-powered job.
Yeah.
All they're ever doing is taking care of other people, whether it's work related or home related. So that must be a difficult barrier that you need to work with these women to break through to say, no, it's time to focus on you. Do you find that to be an issue in the beginning when you start working with the new client?
Absolutely. I think it's always a challenge, and the reason why women, choose to work with me is because I have the strength and the confidence and also the lived life experience as a single mom with two girls and a business, and I've gone through a lot in my life that I talk a lot about on my podcast, including 4 years of court trials and family law. So, which is absolutely emotionally exhausting. So I've had so much lived experience that, and the confidence and the conviction that I have when I partner with somebody, it's like, you have to be all in. And I am the coach that is not just going to give you the information and be like, here's your plan, do this, because I know that 99% of people won't execute on it. And so that is where the coaching comes in, where the one on one is what I usually do with my real high performers, but also in my group programs. I make sure that they have accountability. And I am the type of coach that basically shines a mirror on them so that they can see where they are holding themselves back. So they can see, where they have control and not be worried about the things they can't control outside of themselves, but really, where are their boundaries? Where are their values? Where are their priorities? And then acting in alignment with that and having a woman who is confident enough to stand up to them. And that's a big thing, because these high performing women are used to being able to like get their way. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
really being able to be like, I just run the show. And so when they partner with me, they know that they have an equal that is not going to allow them to self-sacrifice. Right. So that's part of it, is they know if they've listened to my podcast and they've listened to me, they know Ciara's the coach I need because she's not going to fall for my bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Ciara, you're a life coach or a health coach or both? It sounds like both.
Yeah, so I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and
Right.
I've been in practice for 19 years. And I'm also designated as a functional diagnostic nutritionist. So I do things like Dutch tests and GI map tests, so functional diagnostic tests as well in my practice.
Mhm.
But again, really from life experience, because I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, the life coach part is, the secret sauce, I would say, of working with me. And the difference between having a great protocol that a client, like many of my clients have gone to naturopaths, they've gone to other nutritionists, they've gone to, personal trainers, they've like done many things, but they end up, coming to me because of the relationship and the balance that I provide from a perspective of like going deep on the relationship with them, as like with a lot of compassion and love, but also a lot of tough love.
Right.
Because that's what's important. If we're going to really change things in our life, we're always going to be uncomfortable, right? There's
Mm.
always going to be resistance in changing, and it's constant, consistent baby steps, and really, getting rid of a lot of the numbing behaviors that we've used, whether that's food, alcohol, working too much, to
Mhm.
avoid how we're feeling, and really start paying attention to ourselves. What is going on in our own body? How do we actually feel? Right. And the more that we align with our values and to start taking action from that place, the more that they start feeling good. So, going to the gym is not about, oh, I have to burn calories or I have to do this. It's about, I am keeping a promise to myself. And I feel so much better after I do that. I feel more mental clarity. I have more energy. I'm more resilient to whatever, kind of lands on my lap that day. And that is why I'm doing this. So, from a much deeper place is where I come from these, from this perspective.
Yes, yes. So I know women that are in perimenopause, menopause, there's a number of symptoms that are very common: hot flashes,
100.
night sweats, all of
Yeah.
that. And I went through the whole gamut of it as well. But I'm interested in talking about gut health because
Mhm.
for myself, also, when I was in my mid 40s, I was getting divorced and I was also in perimenopause.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of symptoms. I had very bad migraine headaches, which I never experienced before. But the gut issues were incredible. I mean, I would wake up in the morning with a nice flat stomach. And by the end of the day, I would say I looked about 6 months pregnant. And I used
Yeah.
to say, what the hell is this all about? So I'd love for you to shed some information about gut health and how it relates to perimenopause and menopause and what you recommend.
Absolutely. So, gut health and hormones are intrinsically connected. If you have an issue with your gut, you're always going to have an issue with your hormones. So, it's always something that I address right off the bat. Even if women come in and they say, oh, I don't have any symptoms around that, because It's extremely important from a perspective of how we like our microbiome is more than 70% of our immune system, right?
Mhm,
And actually, what studies have shown is that the things that impact women the most in perimenopause, and we look at like, why are these changes happening with anxiety, with weight gain, with energy issues, with sleep? One of the big things is gut health and the other is stress, right? And so with gut health, we really have to focus on what is the food that we are eating? How are we digesting that food? And, what is the quality and how much fiber are we getting? So when there is some major changes with gut health, there are studies that actually show that the inflammation that can occur will actually increase visceral fat storage around that's fat around our organs, even without changing what you're eating or even without eating any more calories. We can be storing more fat. So like our gut health is so important from a perspective of not just our immune system, prevention of disease, because there's many diseases that start in the gut. So even, for example, rheumatoid arthritis has connections to the gut, which you wouldn't think about. But also in studies, when they have done fecal transplants from a fit person to somebody who is suffering with obesity, the person who's suffering with obesity loses weight and their body composition changes. And the same when you are suffering with obesity and you put your fecal matter into somebody who is lean, they end up having a similar reaction and actually putting on fat. So from that perspective, it's really important to understand how do we support our microbiome. And so diversity is really important. So there's the 4 R's of gut healing. So we have remove what could be an issue. And when we are stressed, which often happens in our 40s because of perimenopause, because of the major life changes that you're mentioning, that really impacts our gut because we have a gut brain connection. So stress directly impacts our gut. So we have to look at, what foods do we need to remove? What do we need to introduce? So reintroduction. And then we look at repairing the gut lining, the permeability in the gut, so that we're not having protein molecules that are slipping out into our bloodstream.
right.
Because when that happens, our body mounts a defense. And that's when people start developing these food sensitivities. And then we also have, so you have the remove, you have the repair, you have the reinoculation. And so that's when you're adding in probiotics, when you're reinoculating the gut. But one of the most important things for gut health is really diversity. So we are creatures of habit and we have to learn how to like switch things up. So when they talk about a plate full of colors, you do want to be getting, as many foods from different food families as possible. So just, switching up what is local, what is in season, those types of things. And for women, we want to be getting at least 25 grams of fiber is like the low minimum, but optimally 35 grams of fiber a day. So yeah, so those are things that all are very important, but there's so many issues that can come up. Like another thing that causes a lot of gut issues is that as we get older, we have less hydrochloric acid, we have less enzymes, so we're not digesting our food as well. And that is, well, when you have low hydrochloric acid, that's going to lead to things like SIBO, which you have small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And it's going to lead to, other issues where you get the bloating. I see a lot of clients that have bacterial issues, a imbalance of bad bacteria versus good bacteria. So, there's so many things going on that we have to be aware of, and they are very much connected to our immune system and disease prevention, so as well as hormones and how our hormones are being metabolized. So it's really an ongoing thing, and it takes a good 6 months. Like my clients that come in that might be just having some minor constipation or a little bit of bloating, That I can clear up fairly quickly from a perspective of changing what they're eating and getting rid of processed food and protein bars and packaged shakes and all of those kind of things, right? Like those are the things you want to get rid of and just bring in good, whole, natural foods. So that is super key. And that makes people feel really good right off the bat. But gut health is something that it's really like a 3 month and then like 6 months overall that you really need to be focused on that when there are more significant issues like a SIBO issue or something of that nature. So yeah, it's a huge part of the puzzle and cannot be ignored. And that's why I often have I have many friends who are fantastic personal trainers, fitness coaches, macro coaches, and when they have a client who's not responding, that's when they send them to me because they're like, okay, they're eating what they're supposed to, they're following their macros, it's not working, what's happening? And they send them to me. And so often we get caught up in I want to lose weight and tracking macros or tracking calories, but there is a lack of knowledge about a calorie is not a calorie. We have to look at the quality of food that we're eating
Yeah,
and our ability to digest and assimilate it properly.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
because you could be counting calories from processed foods, and that's a whole different ball game than counting calories from nutritious whole foods. What's your feeling as far as eating animal protein?
So I am a huge proponent of eating animal protein,
Okay,
but
me too.
also very much plant-based as well.
Yeah.
So meaning that you should have at least half of your plate with leafy greens and non-starchy vegetables, and then maybe a quarter of your plate is some type of starch or grain if it's tolerated. But like by starch, I mean squash or sweet potato or beans or something of that nature. And then the other quarter is protein. So we actually have we need more protein as we get older because our body becomes less efficient at breaking it down and hitting protein synthesis, which is the process by which your body holds on to muscle mass and can build muscle mass. And that is one of the most important things that we want to do as we age. So when I have women come into my practice, even if they want to lose weight, I really educate them on you don't want to just lose weight. You don't want to be skinny for the sake of being skinny because skinny as you get older equals frail. And
Yes.
frail equals falls and
Yes.
disease. And you can be a skinny woman with diabetes because you don't have enough muscle.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So my own personal experience when I was going through perimenopause, like I said, I was in the process of getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of stress going on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
uh, I was going to conventional doctors who were just basically telling me it's totally normal to be feeling the way you're feeling at your age. And I
Yes.
could not accept that because the symptoms between migraine headaches, gut issues, anxiety, like you had mentioned, always tired. I gained about 35 pounds without changing my diet in any way. And it wasn't until I went to a functional medicine doctor that I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. And also, well, not 100% confirmed because I never did an endoscopy, but celiac disease.
Mm.
And so when I eliminated gluten from my diet, which took about 6 months to start feeling better, which you said earlier, it takes
Yep.
about 6 months, everything changed for me. And I
Yep.
pretty much went back to feeling more like myself. And
That's amazing.
I went on bioidentical hormones as well for
Yep.
a good number of years. And so then I breezed through the rest of it.
And that's amazing. And studies now show that there's no reason to stop our bioidentical hormones,
Right.
right? That there's so much protection from disease when we continue to take our hormones. So while I am a holistic nutritionist who is obviously not going to be prescribing hormones to anybody, I make it my practice and my mission to help to educate women so that they can better advocate for themselves with their doctor. Because there is a real disconnect right now, because for so long, because of the Women's Health Initiative study, they were not doing bioidentical hormones or any kind of hormone treatment. And unfortunately, women really suffered.
Yeah.
But because of that, doctors don't have the experience, and they haven't necessarily kept up on the research, because we know that they're all overworked and it's just a tall order. So unless they are specifically specialized in that area, they might be going on old research. So I really help my clients to understand what their needs are, pros and cons, to give them the studies so that they can go into that appointment with a ton of information and be able to advocate for themselves and not just be at the mercy of somebody else. Like, when's the last time they picked up a study?
Right. The disadvantage to bioidentical hormones is that most conventional doctors will not prescribe. And so if you see a functional medicine doctor, you're not covered by medical insurance. So it's an enormous amount of out of pocket for women between the visit to the doctor plus the medication. And I find it to be such a shame that we cannot submit to the insurance company for functional medicine, which, in my opinion, is so much better than conventional
A
doctors.
hundred
But
percent. Because they're looking at the whole person as opposed to
yes,
just silos, right? Like, because
right.
everything is connected. Like I said, your brain is connected to your gut,
Yes,
your hormones and your gut health, everything is connected. We are human beings. We are not petri dishes.
right.
So
Yeah.
you're right. And also, now there are FDA approved bioidentical hormones that are
Oh,
covered. There are some. So there you can get bioidentical hormones, like estradiol, and the patch that is FDA approved that will be covered by insurance.
oh,
And you can also get progesterone bioidentical in a pill that, again, is also covered as well.
oh,
So,
good to know.
things like doing it more specifically, transdermal creams that are compounded, those things are still definitely not covered. But there are some things that you can get now conventionally that are bioidentical. Hang on.
Interesting. Okay. So any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with my audience today?
I think what you touched on and saying, hey, I went to my doctor and they said, this is normal. Like, basically, it's normal to feel like crap because you're in your 40s. I want any woman hearing this to know that that is simply not true. As you found, because you were like, I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to go and find somebody who can actually help me. And that obviously made a huge difference for you. And so, that is what I want women to know, that you can empower yourself with information. You can empower yourself to control what is controllable for you. And from a lifestyle perspective, from how you sleep, when you eat, what your nutrition looks like, what does your exercise plan look like, how do you manage stress? Those things are under your control. And they are the biggest piece of the puzzle. Because even if, like I said, I'm an advocate for bioidentical hormone therapy because there's a huge preventative measure there for, especially for preventing cardiovascular disease, which is the number one killer of women. So, I'm a huge proponent of that. But that's not even going to work as well if you don't have a healthy vessel. So we want to focus on being our body's best friend, supporting her, and making the lifestyle changes that are hard. That are hard, but that will make you feel like yourself again. And as you can see, I don't sugarcoat anything, and sometimes that's also like giving up alcohol, right? Like, there was a huge increase in drinking alcohol with women over the last like couple decades. Actually, I saw it in Facebook groups when my children were young, and now they're 14 and 21. But, you know, alcohol damages our gut health. which we just discussed is very important. And you can't heal your gut and drink alcohol at the same time, right? Because you're trying to create a healthier terrain, but you're like pouring gasoline all over it. So I just want women to know that there's an information gap. And then if you have the information, you need the support, the accountability, the community, so that you don't feel like you're alone, and take it day by day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, find out about working with me or my programs, they can go to curafoy.com or find me on Instagram at curafoy Inc.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're so welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming on. And if you want additional information about Ciara, please go to the show notes. I will leave her website and all her social media contacts in there so you could reach out to her. Also, she has a fabulous podcast, which I've been listening to several of her episodes since we've been introduced. So please go to her podcast as well. Ciara is just a wealth of information for midlife women, which is what my podcast is all about. So I am so honored to have her on my podcast, and I look forward to seeing her here again very soon. Thank you to all who listen and support my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it out with friends and family who you think could benefit from listening to Ciara today. And also be sure to subscribe, and I will see you here next time. Again, be well, stay happy, and bye for now.